Hello, everybody, and welcome to our next episode in the series Finding Myself in Torah. And I'm really excited to welcome Raizy Fried today. Raizy, I've been following the stuff that you've been doing for a little while, and I'm so honored that you are making the time to come on here. Maybe you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do, what you're passionate about before we dive in.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. A little bit about myself. So I'm like a typical Hasidic girl from Bar Park. I guess now I'm not so typical, but I have very typical upbringing. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Tell us what's not typical about you. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into it, but
I guess for starters, most typical Hasidic women wouldn't be doing what I'm doing with their face out there, being video, being all over social media, being all over the internet. I don't think it's because it's a bad thing. It's just it's more uncomfortable for them than
mm,
in other crowds. I see, for example, I know already, right? Like when I'm in Crown Heights, most women do not care if they're on camera. They're not on camera. Very chill, opposite extreme.
mm,
When I'm in Bar Park, Williamsburg, Monroe, all these kind of places, sometimes I'm just on my phone. Like I'm not even like filming anything, and people are like, "You video me?" Like very, very like it's just a different way of being,
yeah.
you know?
Well, honestly, I could relate to that sensitivity because it took me a long time to actually be comfortable with my face being public and on camera. Like for a while, it was like I did not want my face anywhere, and then you get used to it over time. But I think also the main reason why we do it is because we feel like there's impact that happens when you put yourself out there that can't happen when you don't. So maybe tell us about that. Like, what do you feel like the impact you're having? Just like in a synopsis of like what are you passionate about, and how do you feel like putting yourself out there is accomplishing some of the goals that you have?
Yeah, so first of all, I should have said, like, I'm making blanket statements when I say brown eyes, whatever.
Yeah.
But, but yeah, there are definitely a bigger majority where I come from that would not feel comfortable doing what I'm doing. The reason I'm doing what I'm doing, I feel like this is what I was meant to do. I interviewed somebody, her name is Mishki Afton, and she said it
Mm,
so, I don't think anyone could say it better. She's like, how do you know what you're meant to be doing?
mm,
Think weirdly comfortable doing. Like, she
mm,
said when her epiphany hit, she was like, they were filming for something. They filmed something for a Guinness or something. I'm not exactly sure.
mm,
And guy that was filming was like, you're so easy to deal with. Like one take, amazing. Other women, I have to like pull the words out of them. And that's when she realized like this is what she's meant to be doing. This is
mm,
and she's a great connector, a great speaker. And of course, you can do these over the phone. Nobody sees you. You can write anonymously in magazines. You can still use your voice. You cannot compare the impact. You cannot compare the impact. When you're reading a magazine article written by a pen name, you don't know who that person is. Like, why should I even try? Not that people know me completely either, but they know enough about me that they feel like connect with me. So like, oh, even Raizy said that so and so is okay, or even raises that because they connect, you see a person consistently. Um, I also feel like social media, to be successful, you need to put yourself out there. Now, why is it so important to be successful on social media? Who says you have to be successful on social media, right? Well, what's the other route? Like, what's the other route of using your voice and getting out there, trying to get into those two, three magazines, which you need a ton of protexia, a ton of pull. I forgot the English word for protexia. Anyway, so you need the pull, you need the connections. Okay, so you get it. So you get one article published, you get another one. I mean, women become so turned off by just that process, and then they don't even bother. So then they just keep all the stuff they write for themselves. They're not challenged. When you're writing for somebody or when you have a platform and people are waiting to hear from you, you also have that challenge of um, walking on the street and like, oh, I can write about that. I can talk about that. Or things happening in your life. You're like, oh, wow. I was just home with my kids today. It was so overwhelming. Usually I'm screaming, but today it was different. Why? Because I decided I'm just not caring. I'm just not caring about the mess, whatever. I'm just saying little breakthroughs that happen in your life. And you're like, you pay more attention to it because you know you're going to be sharing it. People know that speakers, teachers, automatically they're learning more because they know they have a responsibility to give, to teach. They're automatically more present, hopefully, right? I'm talking about the good ones in their own life. They're constantly learning and constantly listening, and that's our job. I think everyone's supposed to do that, but I also think that everyone is here to make an impact on this world and share their knowledge. We are given the Torah not just for ourselves, but to pass it on to others. So with social media, that I just found it an incredible tool to do just that. To do just that. Use it for the good.
Yeah, just for anybody who doesn't know, Raizy has a media, like a platform called Inspired Living, where she produces like incredible media content from women on all kinds of both like lifestyle stuff, but also a lot of inspirational content on all kinds of really important issues that come up in women's lives. So that's just
Right.
yeah.
First of all, you asked me what I do, and I never even said what I do. But I started off in social media, food blogger, let's just say, sharing a bunch of recipes and stuff like that. Slowly it evolved lifestyle, and slowly as I grew as a person, because we're talking about I'm doing this for over 10 years already. So I grew up a lot in that time. And as I matured and I learned and I went through some pretty big breakthroughs in my own life, I love sharing. When I find a new way to make fish or a new way to set the table that's so much easier, a little practical hack, I want to share it with everyone. It's just this is my natural thing. And the same is true, it's not just with recipes, but when I find a new mindset shift, a new way to think that makes life so much more meaningful, and that makes you be able to, change your beliefs, and then this becomes so much easier, I want to share that too. So that's how my platform evolved. Now, after a certain amount of time, I felt like I had so much more to share. I felt like Instagram wasn't the place. I mean, I've done a lot of things. I've written books, 2 books, some cookbooks that came out. I can just show the books so that, this is my first book that you might have seen around. And then I have another one for Kids at Heart. So I was doing a lot of these things, but then I felt like I had more to offer. And I felt like Instagram wasn't that place anymore because Instagram changed tremendously. Like it became a place that's perfect for doom scrolling and just like people are just no attention span on that. And I see it myself. When I'm on Instagram, my attention span is different than, let's say, when I'm watching a long form video on YouTube. When I'm sitting down or like even not sitting down, even I'm just doing my makeup and a YouTube thing is on, I'm like, I'm going to be listening now. I'm going to be listening to what this person has to share. When I'm on Instagram, I'm just like, 2 seconds, not interesting, scroll, next. Like, that's how the platform evolved. Just kind of sad.
Right. It's not like designed for depth. Yeah, totally.
I mean, it's never for depth, meaning it was never YouTube, but it used to be beautiful in the sense that we would post pictures and beautiful descriptions, and we would read all these beautiful descriptions. And that's not happening either anymore. Nobody's like anymore. It's all about reels. So I decided I have so much. I feel like I also saw a void in the Jewish world where women were literally just pushing through their life. Pushing through their life, if it's their job, if it's their children, putting the kids to bedtime, then going again, and then what's for supper, and becoming very monotonous. So much so that I found women were looking for drama or different outlets, or becoming bitter and complaining about their mother-in-law all day, or whatever it was, just because it was so much time. There was no real richness and meaningful fulfillment in their life that was filling them up. Like, sometimes right now I'm going through something, but like I'm not even paying too much attention to it. Not because I'm a Rebbitzin or I'm better than you. It's just I have so much more exciting and more meaningful things to use my energy for, that I'm not going to waste it now on being mad at this, It had really, really interfering with my life on a very great level for me to be really mad about it all day. Otherwise, even if somebody says something not nice, I'm just moving on. I have so much exciting things to do. And that's what I wanted for women. And I felt like we need to start talking about things. First of all, women were very, very overwhelmed. And that's why they felt like there's no space even. There's no space to read a book. There's no space to learn a new skill. There's no space to do something meaningful because it has to go on play as it is. And felt like there's so much lacking in not even the learning, but the support part. Motherhood is one of the hardest jobs. I did not feel like I, as a mother, had that kind of support in my life. I didn't feel like I had somebody just cheering me on. And it's not just about cheering on, you're great, you're amazing, it's hearing from other women about what has helped them. First of all, the validation part is huge. When you hear about a struggle that you thought you were the only crazy person having, but like it's so normal, that already takes a huge part off your shoulder. But then when you get to hear from women that what helps them. Anyways, so that's how I created this platform called Inspired Living, which is a website, watch.raizyfried.com, or an app. And on there, that's what we do. We are here to support women and also to open their minds a little bit, give them more emotional coping tools and practical tools. So there's everything. It's divided by category. We cover everything from marriage to chinuch to self-growth, overcoming challenges, organizing your house, just having fun in the kitchen, everything, like literally everything. And because I feel like we need everything. Us as Jewish women, we're about everything. We're not just career women. We're not just family people. We're not just a wife. We're not just, we have our own stuff to deal with. We also need help with that. And we also want to know how to make a fabulous new recipe for a Hanukkah party. We are all that, and we need support with all that. So I opened this platform. Now, I want to point this out because I think this is very important. So people would say, oh, amazing. You see, you made this platform. And now you can go, let's say, theoretically, you can go off of social media, right? So there's a lot of pieces to the social media part. And I think I'm addressing it maybe because I started off with saying that I'm not typical in the sense that I'm using it and putting my face out there like a regular Hasidic woman. And they don't do it because they believe it's wrong. Now, I just want to, I guess, say how right I feel it is, at least for me, because what happens when a woman does something beautiful? She gives out a beautiful book. It's been happening so many times. She has, let's say I would have this platform. Let's say some lady, Sarah Cohn, made a beautiful platform. How does anyone know about it? So that's number one. Like, I'm using and inspiring women on a smaller level on social media, and then I am introducing them to this, and that's how every week more people are signing up. I post trailers every week from like the conversation, the topic. You can see a little sneak peek of the guest I'm having, the topic that I'm addressing, and every time other people subscribe, because guess what? Some people say they don't have time, but then we do like an episode on like healing from sexual abuse, and that hits a bell with somebody, or another topic that's not discussed that we need so much chesed with mikvah and all that thing as women. They'll subscribe for that, and then they might find other things that interest them. And another piece of this is that, so yes, you can put ads in the paper, print ads, spend a bomb of money. I mean, that money is going to end up using up at some point. I mean, I don't know, people that have like a endless cash flow, it's $1,200 per page. Like, I see women who don't have that presence or don't have a big audience, and it doesn't have to mean online. Sometimes people don't need online presence because they're so popular in their own community. So that's how they do their marketing. I see them give out books and nobody knows about it. I see them doing things and nobody knows about it. It's an immense, powerful tool. And I remember I've had it many times that I was fed up from Instagram, because messages that I got, stuff that I saw other people doing, sometimes I would see things and I would be like, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed to be associated with this platform. I'm embarrassed to be here. Like, seriously, this is such a garbage zone. Why am I here? And what consoled me then, I remember, was looking at my people that I look up to, like, let's say, Rabbi Manis Friedman, Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson, different speakers that they have Instagram pages. Now, they're not the ones on Instagram, I think. They have people doing it for them, but it doesn't matter. They have realized that Instagram is an amazing tool to reach and inspire people. Reach and inspire people. And when we're talking about we're promoting our thing so we can inspire people. So it's basically the same thing. So in any case, if we're posting right then to inspire, or if we're posting to get people to another thing to inspire, or if we're posting, let's say, I am reviewing, in typical influencer, this smoothie that is so delicious. Well, this company is paying me, right? They're paying me so that I could make a living, so that I can inspire. You know what I'm saying? That's also like,
Yeah,
like
totally.
that's something, by the way, that I used to so much want to do. It's called the Chal Derechechu Dayai, which means in all of your ways.
Yeah.
If you're a shoemaker, don't look at it as if, oh, I have my shoe, my 9 to 5, my grind, my store. No, you're a shoemaker. First of all, you're providing for your family so that your children have what they need, your wife has what they need, whatever it is. But also, you are actually helping people be able to walk to Cheder, walk to shul, walk to do mitzvos. And I really try to infuse my own life with it, because there's a lot of technical logistics, and it could really easily turn into something else, especially when you have to learn other things, like learning how to market, learning different things that you need in your trade, right? All this stuff. We have to educate ourselves in that area as well as businesswomen. So it could very fast turn into like a different game, and you totally forget what you're doing. And this is an example of what I meant before with the motherhood as well. Because guess what? Motherhood could turn into something else completely, about the beautiful photo shoots and the matching children and the nice little setup that you did for Shabbos. You could totally forget what you're doing it for, what it's all about. And it takes work to center ourselves, to keep on centering ourselves.
Okay, wow, there's so much in there. I want to unpack like so many different things that you said, and yeah, I have like so many questions to sort of go, so many paths to go down. I just want to share one thing, which is that when you said about like you using your platform as an opportunity to inspire people and how powerful that is, and I think I just interviewed somebody yesterday. Who wrote her PhD on like the evolution of girls' education, and she wrote about like all the different girls' schools that opened up around the same time, like not just Beis Yaakov, but comparing to other schools also. And Beis Yaakov was like by far way more successful than all the other schools that opened around the same time. And she was talking about why. And one like sort of suggestion she gave was that it was led by a woman. All the other schools were led by rabbis, and it was the only school that had a female leader. And the girls had someone to look up to as like a role model in that school. And that just reminded me of that when you were talking about this, about how, there's all these rabbis online who are using this platform to put themselves out there for people to see them and hear them. And I think something about you being a Hasidic woman, so like more and more women can see you as a role model of someone who's living the B'chol Derech HaDayahu and all of those values is something that's really, really powerful and we can't underrate it, So yeah. Definitely believe in that. Okay, so one thing, maybe the thing to start with is I heard you do an interview with Frida Vizel, and you mentioned something there that I wanted to kind of discuss a little bit more, which is, sometimes as women, once we get married and have a family, like we can kind of leave our Yiddishkeit behind at like a fourth grade level, or at least certain like areas of our Yiddishkeit behind on a fourth grade level, because like we had an education, right? Most of us went to Jewish schools. We, learned about all these different things, but then we grow up and we develop and we mature, and other areas of our life are developing and maturing, but our Torah hasn't. And it creates sort of this gap between who we are as people now and like our relationship with our Yiddishkeit. So I guess what I would want you to like kind of talk about a little bit is, first of all, have you experienced that in your own life? You did mention how like there was a point when you realized that you wanted to like change the direction of your platform and move in a little bit of a different direction. Maybe share a little bit about that journey. And yeah, I guess like what happens when there's that gap between who we are and where our Yiddishkeit's at, and how can we bridge that?
I really think that the reason women stop learning, and obviously I believe that women should be learning, is because, when you stop doing something for such a long time, like think of somebody that's working out every day, or maybe she's not working out consciously, but she's living in Borough Park or Brooklyn, the city, wherever, okay? So she's busy walking to work every day and everything. And then she moves to like the outskirts, Muncie, Lakewood, whatever, and that's it. You don't move anymore. In the car, out of the car. Then when she happens to be like on Shabbos, she's walking to like 15, 20 minutes, like a whole big thing. Walking to 20 minutes away. Well, you used to walk 25 minutes every day to work, 25 minutes every day to school. It wasn't even a big deal. Now you're like, think you're doing exercise. You walk 25 minutes. Why? Because she got like unused. She's not used to it anymore, right? She's not used to this anymore. So it sort of became unnatural to her. It's sad, right? She got used to not moving. Every little thing is a whole big thing. It's like, and I think that's what happens when we go out of school. We go out of school and we get busy with our jobs, we get busy with our careers, we get busy with our marriage, then we get busy with our children, and like we forget about learning and what that's like. And then it's like sort of uncomfortable already, like finding the time, having patience to listen, and then we stay with exactly like you said, like we stay with a level of like thinking that Paro is still in pajamas running around. Like that's where our level is at, and it's really, really sad. So, and you know what's even more sad, by the way, just a little tangent, getting off with a little pet peeve, is that there are women that actually are educated, meaning they will buy self-help books and stuff. They're so educated in pop psychology and all of our, self-help, woke stuff, whatever. I'm not saying that self-help is woke. I'm just saying they're very educated when it comes to like, sometimes even parenting, okay? They take all the parenting classes because they want to be a good parent, and it's coming from a good place. And the classes they go to might not be aligned with our Torah values. We've seen that infiltrate a lot in our community. So they're all educated in that or in something that they need for work. But then when it comes to like the core basics of our Torah, they're still on that, 7th grade level, which is so sad. And they could be quoting stuff that is totally not online, that is very high up there. Like some people have even degrees and stuff like that. So you can't say they're not educated. but it comes to basics and they can't even explain it to you. Like, and then they can even watch, let's say, a show or something, and there's this person that left the community, let's say, going on and on about, how oppressed we are as Jewish. She used to be as a Jew, from religious woman or whatever. And this woman is literally sitting there nodding along. And why is she nodding along? Because she never did her work in really empowering herself with information and learning that no, the bracha that we do, Shalai Sani issue, that the men say, Shalai Sani issue, isn't actually what these people are making it out to be. It's actually very empowering when you learn the essence of it. But they never learn. So they're like, oh, yeah, right. And that's so sad. And I'm very much a big proponent of women learning. And that's what I'm trying to do. I think that's what I always did. Sometimes, I became more intentional with it, let's just say. But even with my first book, Lekovat Shabbos Kodesh, which is a book with recipes. So in the Jewish world, the lifestyle kind of a book wasn't really a thing. In the non-Jewish world, we've seen a lot of lifestyle kind of cookbooks where there's more to it than just recipes. In the Jewish world, most cookbooks were picture, recipe, picture, recipe, picture, recipe. Now I started off my cookbook with like a bunch of writing because I felt like I was not being true to what I believe. If I spent a whole book on how to make the perfect fish and the perfect tablescape and everything. So there's like a whole chapter in here, how to arrive to Shabbos, entering Shabbos like a queen, so that you enter Shabbos. I wrote, many women feel the desire to make Shabbos special. They prepare and they work hard and they cook up a storm. And instead of enjoying the fruits of their labor, they are so exhausted when Shabbos arrives, they can hardly keep their eyes open and just forget about enjoying it. They're like a shemata and how to emotionally take care of yourself so that you don't end up feeling like a shmati, end up really being able to tune into the Kedusha of Shabbos and to be able to enjoy Shabbos, because Einik Shabbos actually takes active work. It's not something that just lands with the stork, It's something that women have to know how, and being able to just basic information. I think it's pretty basic, but that's what I did. I wrote all these things in the front, and it was so amazing the feedback that I got. The feedback that I got was just off the charts. And I remember, why did I write it? Because obviously I felt like women need to hear it. But when the feedback came back, I was just like, wow, why are they going so crazy? I mean, we all know about self-care. We all know about like stuff that I wrote in the book. And then I realized these women don't, because these women buy cookbooks. They don't buy other books. These women buy clothing and they buy their stuff, and they're very very into the physical stuff, and they don't educate. So I always try to sort of speak to people through the recipes. And then I guess at a certain point I couldn't contain myself anymore, and I came out with this book called The Anatomy of Yenta. This is full blown, I'm just saying it. I'm just talking and sharing my experience, the stuff that I learned. It's a self-help memoir. So the whole thing centers around the Yenta, which is my way of calling a woman that is stuck and has no purpose in life. The tagline here is break the Yenta mold, embrace dignity, and create an elegant life. So that's really what it's about. And I talk about my experience. It's a lot about gossiping, but it's not just about gossiping. It's about a way of being where you're running away from yourself. You're not really deeply fulfilled. And I go through the causes that I realized, and through research and through talking to people, of why women would act in the Yenta way, which is thriving off of the juice and thriving off of people's drama, and just thriving off of drama in general. It's because they're missing something. And it could be a lot of reasons. It could be friends, bad friends, it could be low self-esteem. And I go through all of that thing. Every chapter discusses something else. So that's where I'm coming from. And that's what I'm trying to do with Inspired Living, is really, that's why there's still recipes on there. Some people will come for how to make a beautiful party episode. They want those stuff. But then they might just click on the thing next to it that talks about, different mindsets that can help you overcome challenges in life. They might just be intrigued to watch something on how to improve their marriage and learn different relationship tools. And I find that when you can take information, it doesn't have to be from me, but from a source that doesn't feel too overwhelming and too intimidating, you start to get that feeling of what it feels like when your mind opens up. I didn't think of that. Never thought of it that way. And that is such a beautiful, wonderful feeling. And I want women to start feeling that, because when they start feeling that, they're going to start craving more. And they're going to start craving more. They're hopefully going to have the cycle to look for it. And you don't even have to look these days. They're literally on the same phone that you use to shop for your children's adorable matching clothes, you can also put on a shir. You don't want to listen to shir, you can't listen to Gemara, you can't listen to a rabbi. There are so many great podcasts these days. There are so many great books. There's so many options. So I feel like I don't connect to everything, and every woman has something else that they connect to, and you've got to find what works for you, but you've got to find something. You got to find something. It could be an in-person class, right? But you got to find something that works to fill up your cup, because if not, this is a whole separate conversation. It's a very long conversation, but something I'm very passionate about, which is it leads to burnout. That's where burnout comes from, when your life is meaningless. Viktor Frankl talks a lot about that, about how when you have meaning, when you have a mission in your life, it is the most therapeutic thing from like a psychology standpoint. Forget about like Torah, yeah? You know, of course, as Yidden, we want to live our mission and live our tafkid. But even from a psychological standpoint, the worst thing is boredom. The worst thing is when you don't have a purpose. Your life lacks meaning. And it's ironic to say, because we're talking about from religious women here. So what do you mean your life has no purpose? They're keeping Shabbos. They're going to the mikveh. They're sending their kids to school and to cheder and yeshiva and whatever. Sorry, maybe it sounds controversial, but that life could be very meaningless. It could be just very meaningless. I see it all the time. I've seen it with myself. I remember when I came out with the first book, and this friend was reading the book, and this was about Shabbos, and she was like, I have like a whole chapter on lighting Shabbos candles, and I explained the way it feels like, you know, I pour out my heart to Hashem every night, every week at lech benching, and how it feels like this embrace and like this sort of like euphoria that takes over me when Shabbos comes in. And she's like, I cannot relate to it. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, she didn't, I mean, I light candles too. I don't have those feelings. And that's what it looks like when you're living a Jewish life but not necessarily connected life. And it can come from a lot of different things. And I'm not here to diagnose, but one of the things it come from is if you don't put in the effort, you know, it takes effort. It's not something that just, you know, Shabbos comes and it's like, you know, you walk on the street. I talk about this in my second book because I really wanted to break it down for children. The second book is Lekuvot Shabbos Kodesh for kids and kids at heart. So it's for everyone. But I also try to write it in a very simple language so that it can be for children and teenagers. And I write about creating your atmosphere, about creation. Like, I want children, but all people to know that there's always something you can do to create an atmosphere. Like, you walk on the street on Saturday, right? I'm saying Saturday because, like, if you see non-Jewish people walking on the street, like, nothing is different for them. It's the same day. It's my day, Shabbos. It's their, nothing feels Shabbos-dik to them. They're just walking around, dressed like they're always dressed, doing what they always do. Nothing is special. Why is it special for us? Because we consciously put in a lot of intentional effort. We wear different clothes. We daven different davening. We eat different food. The house looks different. Everything is different. Everything was stuff that Hashem didn't just magically make happen. We actually had to do it. We actually had to put on the different clothes, clean our house, go to shul, daven different stuff, act differently, behave. Everything is in our hands. And if we don't put in the effort, like, happens to me, I know this person that cheered that she doesn't feel connected. Like, I think that you don't have to, there could be different reasons, but you don't have to be smart to know why somebody like that might not be connected. But because you walk into her house on Friday night, it doesn't look like Friday night. Like, the mixer is still on the counter and all the ingredients are still on the counter, and she's lighting candles on like two little tea candle thingies. Like, no, there's no candelabra, there's no oven, it's just dumped on the island together with everything else. And the table isn't necessarily set, and she isn't necessarily, her kids or herself are not necessarily dressed Shabbos to get. She's just a little all over the place. How can that feel special? You know, the material stuff is here for a reason. It's here for a reason. And that's why in Hasidus we don't bash materialism. We just say you got to use it in the right way as a means to an end. And it serves such an important purpose in our Yiddishkeit. And Shabbos is the perfect example. How are you going to feel like, when your house looks like chaos, even more so than a regular day because you just cooked for Shabbos. So everything, there was so much more cooking going on. So there's so much more mess going on. And it's hard work. And that's why I created this whole book full of tips, because it's hard work. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's easy. And we do this every week, and we have so much on our plates, and we're mothers, and we're working, and we're wives, and there's so much happening. I'm not making light of it at all. But what I'm saying is that it is being Yiddish, being religious, doesn't necessarily mean that your life is more meaningful. It takes extra work. Some of us have an easier time with it. Let's say in terms of Shabbos, if we were raised in a house where certain things were just basic, right? In our head, it's a basic, and this is how Shabbos is. It doesn't feel like Shabbos otherwise. It might be easier for us because it's sort of instinctive. It's like, it doesn't even take so much effort for us. If we weren't raised with that, it's harder. If we have ADHD, it might be harder. There's a million different reasons of why things might be harder, but that's our avoidance in this world, to like really be connected and live a meaningful life.
Okay, yeah, there's so much I want to ask you about and everything you said, but and I feel like you brought up like every issue that I wanted to bring up today, so it's great. Okay, maybe one thing that I'll focus on for right now is, so first of all, this whole idea of Shabbos and preparing for Shabbos and seeing it as something that like we need to invest in to create, it's something that we actually spoke about when we had a phone conversation a few months ago, and it was actually had a really big impact on me personally. I don't know if I told you this, but like it actually changed the way I think about preparing for Shabbos, and like, because I was always the kind of person who was like, the materialistic stuff isn't so important. It's more about like who I am internally, my mind and my heart. And you actually kind of shifted my perspective that no, the materialistic stuff is also important. And I think I love that you brought in that, like, I think specifically in like a Hasidic, it's like a hashkafa we specifically embrace like in the Hasidic community. I think more perhaps than in like the more yeshivish community, which is this idea that like physical things, material things are holy, and these should be used for holiness. And our role in this world is not just to like separate ourselves from materialism entirely, but to utilize it in a holy way. I guess like my question is like, where do you find the balance? I'll just share like one anecdote where there was one Friday where I like was like working, like getting all the food ready, having the house clean. Like I was just like very stressed about like having all those things you just described ready for Shabbos. And then Shabbos came in and I was exhausted. I collapsed and fell asleep. And like I think my husband came home. He also fell asleep. We both woke up at like 11 p.m. had like a groggy half awake meal together. And I remember after just thinking like, that was so backwards. Like I just worked myself crazy to prepare for Shabbos that I was asleep. I wasn't even there on Shabbos because I was asleep, right? Because I was so exhausted. And I was like, wouldn't it have been better if I took a nap and I like learned something to prepare for Shabbos so that like my mind and heart were ready? Like when we're greeting the Shabbos Queen, it's not just our house, it's also like us. Like we want to be ready for the Shabbos Queen, right? So I guess my question that I'm asking you is like, where do you find the balance between those two things? And of course there's value in both. And I think also I've been hearing a lot of discussion lately about this idea of materialism in the frum community, and the frum community becoming very almost obsessed, like the culture shifting of like us sort of embracing luxury and excessive, some people say excessive materialism. So how do you, I guess, find the balance between like focusing on our spiritual, like internal, like the environment we create internally and the environment we create externally? And is there a point that it's going too far? Like how do we not get lost in the materialistic side of it, you know?
So first of all, what you shared with, just like falling asleep, waking up 11 o'clock, being so zonked, I think that we can all relate to it. We all had it once or twice, at least, where we worked so hard to make this beautiful Shabbos or Yom Tov, and then the first night of Yom Tov or Friday night or whatever the case is, we were just not there. And I think that's how, because I felt that, that's why I was able to write this book, because I felt like I want people to know better. And we cover a lot of these topics, like on inspired living, for example. There's this whole chatzas movement, which means that you don't do things after chatzas, major malacha, which means you could still turn on lights and stuff, but the major cooking, the major cleaning, the major work should not be done after chatzas. What does that give you? That gives you time to be present, to prepare yourself for Shabbos, not just your house, not just your food. There are people that start preparing for Shabbos throughout the week. In Hasidus, there are a lot of yunim on napping on Friday. Why do you think that is? To be rested for Shabbos so that it doesn't look like that. Now, nothing if these situations happen. Like, it's bound to happen, but it's not a problem if it happens, as long as we like realize, oh, that felt icky, that felt very wrong. How can I prevent this in the future? That's what life is all about. We have these incidents where things happen, and then we just try to figure out how to avoid it in the future. What can I do smarter? So that's that. That's about Shabbos. And that's the balance. And maybe you are making too many dips. And maybe you are making too many fancy things. There is such a thing. We covered it in that episode. She was talking about, the excessiveness. She was addressing, I forgot her name. I wish I could quote her. Okay. Sarah Berkowitz. I think her name is Sarah Berkowitz. I'm not sure. So she has this beautiful chatos movement, and she talks about all of that, and she talks about the excessiveness, about like we do prepare too much food for Shabbos, and if you're preparing all that food, you're working all week, and you have all these things, and it's not taking away from anything, you're still finding time to arrive, like I mentioned, like really be present, then it's probably not a problem. I mean, I think there's still a problem about tashchis if you end up throwing it away, but if you don't end up throwing it away, if you're eating it for the rest of the week leftovers, then it's not a problem. But if you're throwing away food, you're arriving to Shabbos like a shmata, you're overworked, martyr, exhausted, there is a big problem. It's not Lakovit Shabbos Kodesh anymore, and I think we really have to take a moment to think about it. Not be stuck doing the same stupid thing that everyone's doing, or that your mother did, or that your neighbor did, Lakovit Shabbos, if it's not feeling so coveted anymore for you anymore. That's number one. Number three, we went into the whole topic of materialism. I think, how do we know the balance? I really think it's, as long as it's a means to an end, it's fine. If this is in itself your whole life, it's a problem. And I think you know that when your life revolves around it, when you can't stop thinking about it, when you can't stop doing it, when you can't stop. I mean, think about the women that don't stop talking about clothes. Like they literally, they know every brand and when they're dropping and every sale and every, they know everything. They've seen every collection and they talk about brands and designers and wigs all day. That is a problem, because if it's taking up that much time, mind space, that's a problem. And the same is true with cooking. I know, like, not many people will say that, because it feels like cooking is like a Yiddish mama, you're cooking for your family, something so beautiful. But if all day long you're busy obsessing over recipes and ingredients, and you call yourself a foodie, and you keep on going to different restaurants and tasting different food, nothing is wrong with going to restaurants. I go to restaurants too. I love it. You can look at my Instagram. You'll see me, enjoying food. But what's the percentage of your day, of your week? How much time is it taking up? Like, when it comes to fashion, I love fashion. I love pretty clothes, and I like putting myself together nicely. But I don't talk about it. I really don't talk about it. Talk to my friends, talk to my mother, talk to my sisters. We don't talk. I never talk about, I bought this, and like whatever. And when I go to stores, I send pictures to the whole family, and should I buy this, should I buy that? And do you see her by the wedding? She wore that green dress, and yeah, and I know, she bought it, she's fixed it. Oh, we don't talk this. We just don't. Meaning to say that to have that, it doesn't mean that you need to obsess. And when you see somebody looking gorgeous, it doesn't mean she's shallow. It doesn't mean she's busy with clothes all day because she happens to look stunning. When you see, some people will whip up beautiful things, but they don't actually spend a lot of time obsessing over it. Then you could see the opposite. You could see people that don't even dress up to kill. They don't even make such fancy things, but their whole world revolves around food or clothes or whatever. If your whole life revolves around it, and how do you know if your whole life revolves around it? Percentage-wise, how much time do you spend browsing for it, looking for it, talking it, discussing it, shopping, checking stores? If you're shopping for something and you have to spend 3 days looking for that dress, I'm not talking when it's like a special dress, I don't know, for a wedding, I don't know. I'm talking about like if every outfit takes you 10 stores to go to and 3 days to buy, and then 7 hours telling everyone what you bought, there's a problem there. Okay, there's a problem. There's obsession. Obsessions in general are cheap. Anything that's taken to any extreme is cheap. It's just not classy. Any woman, that she could be dressed beautifully and classy with the beautiful tzniustic stuff, but if she doesn't stop talking about her clothing and what she's going to buy next and how she bought this and how she went to 20 stores and she found the best, that's not classy anymore. That is just like an oxymoron. It's not classy anymore. It's lost it's just obsessive a little bit. So dwelling in food or in whatever it is. So I think that that's how we know that something is off, when we tend to go into that behavior. And I also think that the solution to this is what I said before, meaning if you're learning or you're doing meaningful work, if it's a job that's meaningful, if it's volunteer work that's meaningful, if it's stuff with your kids and your family that's meaningful, then you're not going to have so much time to be running around to a billion stores or to be tasting stuff at restaurants of foodie and talking about flavors and spices all day long, or whatever it is, because you have so much more meaningful work to do. So you're still having the same delicious food. You're still going to the restaurant every now and then. You're still dressing to kill and beautiful and everything. Everything still stays the same, but you're doing this fast. Yeah, you're going to go in, whatever, Or if you're not such a fast person, you're doing it slowly, but you're not doing it that often. Whatever it is. Like, I don't think it's the way, okay, when we say excessive luxuries, I don't think it's like looking at a person saying, oh,
it's a quality over quantity. Like, it's not about how much, it's about like what's your mindset around it and how much of it, I think means to an end, I think is.
It's a behavior, it's not the look. It's not the look of the person, it's the behavior of the person. It's how they got it, how they do it. It's not how they look.
Yeah, and I think it's hard for all of us to like figure out that balance within ourselves, and like we all struggle with this with different things, and figuring out when has it gone too far, when is it not a means to an end anymore. Yeah, something that requires honesty with ourselves.
I remember I did a photo shoot for my children in Yerushalayim a few years ago. I wanted that old city look, and it was before my son's upshare. It was a while ago. And the photographer told me that the kids would look best if they wear beige, like tan clothes, solids, whatever. And I had three kids then. I had bought two for the two oldest one, and the youngest I couldn't find the same shade. Like everything was like clashing. I remember I like a crazy person. I went around looking for this shade, and I usually don't do this so much. I buy cute clothes, but it's fast. But it was this big photo shoot. I was spending so much money on it. I had this vision of like the pictures hanging in my house, and it is hanging in my house, and it is gorgeous. But the amount of time that I spent, even just like buying online and then busy returning and then trying on and forcing the kids to stand straight. Let me try on one more thing. Please try on. You'll get a candy. All this time because I wanted this picture to be perfect. And I remember thinking then, this is what people do all the time, every season. I'm doing it once. I don't do photo shoots with my family so often. I did it once in a few years and I was going crazy. People do this every single season for their family, walking around, looking, buying, returning till they find the perfect. No, and I want it to be like a onesie, like not a two-piece, and it has to be beat. It has to be. It's crazy. I know how much effort that takes because I've done it. Like in this case, I still remember it in my bones, how much stress. And he was a very big kid. He wasn't 3 yet. So all the suspender kind of like built up pants, like the one pieces came, let's say, up to size 2 toddler. And let's say he was a 4 toddler, whatever it was. I don't remember the size. I think it was like more. He was like a 5, 6. And I don't want to put him on just like a shirt and pants. I wanted it to be cute. I had like this look. It has to have like the suspenders. So I was like, in Yiddish we call it krachen Koppenwand, which means I'm banging my head on the wall of this look that I wanted. And that's why it was so hard to get. Not because there isn't cute clothing out there, but because I had this specific vision. That's what women do every single season with every single kid and themselves as well. You know how much it's much. I was embarrassed. I remember I was embarrassed of myself how much energy I was spending on this and time.
Right. Yeah. I feel like everyone has their time when they've gone down that route and they're like, wait, I need to rein it back. Like this is going too far. So what I want to talk about now is, so I think in your book, Anatomy of a Yenta, which you referenced a few times, and I think everything we've been talking about is, the way to get out of that like stuck mindset of like, going for like the cheap thrills of gossip and, getting obsessed with materialism, all these things is by like raising yourself up to a level above, finding meaning, finding purpose, finding your own self-confidence, all those things. And also like we were set up preparing for Shabbos, like, that self-care. I guess what I want to talk about is like what's unique, and there's many ways, like you said, that women can find that, right? Through self-help and through psychology and through, all kinds of books out there that can help them with that. And all kinds of methods of like taking care of themselves and like building themselves from within. Like, I guess I would love for you to talk about like what can Torah offer us specifically? Like, what is it about Torah? And obviously, we're Jews, so like Torah is our guide for life. But like in terms of like the way it can shift our relationships, our sense of self, our confidence, our sense of meaning. Like, can you maybe give some examples of that? Of like how like specifically when it comes like Torah, actually connecting to Torah, can give us those things.
Hey, I think in psychology, like Terry discussed it already years ago, but somehow like people are leaving that on the shelf to gather some dust, and they're busy reading all the trendy new books and all the real stuff that stick, the real things that are true, timeless, classic, are rooted in our old school, biblical wisdom. It's just a fact of life. Like, we see it time and again with even scientific discoveries of like, this is that as Yidden, we do it all the time. Like, I remember there was like a study of like, when you wake up, you need like 12 seconds. I might be like not saying it accurately, but like 12 seconds to like, before you get up so that you shouldn't be like all disheveled. And then somebody was saying that it's like literally the time that it takes to say, like, so this is about more of like the mitzvahs that we are doing anyways, I guess. But the same thing is in our head. The same thing is with all of like the therapy work. Ingrained in our Torah, and especially in Hasidus, is hisbodedus, self-talk, all of these different modalities that we can find in our Torah in itself, and all the things, a Torah is so much. There's the parshas, and then there's all the other things, and all the different surim, and all of our amazing leaders throughout the generations, and all this frum and their work that they've put out. So I think that when we learn that, we get everything that we need. We get the validation, we get the empowerment, we get the tools. And when I'm talking about tools, I'm talking about the emotional tools as well. It's all in there.
Nice. So I guess maybe just to push on that a little bit. Like, let's say if I'm a woman who's used to like, listening to podcasts or reading books on pop psychology, and like that's easy to me. It speaks my language. Like, what's gonna make me want to listen to a shiur or like learn something? Like, why would I, if I can get that, therapeutic experience from those other avenues? Like, why? Like, besides for a religious reason, so to say, like, why am I going to Torah?
So I think that there's nothing wrong with listening to secular stuff as long as it's aligned. There's Chacham Goyim Tam, and you could learn a lot from, as long as they're refined, it's not trashy. You could listen, but I think there's another aspect that's very important. You're saying you're finding it relatable. You know how much more relatable it is when you're finding the same exact things, but a frum woman is teaching it to you, or a frum man, and it's like, let's say, labor and delivery, okay? Or childbirth, or different things. You can learn this beautifully, and you can get so much knowledge from secular people. But I just did an interview on this woman that's a doula, and the way she put down like the physical stuff wrapped up in all of the like what she tells the women that will help them and empower them through their labor and delivery, of like why they're doing this, and that they can do it, and that Hashem put in all that. Like, I can't even explain to you how different and more beautiful that sounded to somebody that I've never heard it that way. I've heard it only like just the secular way. And that's what you get. What am I going to get from listening to a rabbi or listening to somebody that's giving it with a Torah flavor? You're going to get that, because after all, our lifestyles look very different than all these self-help gurus. It's not the same. I mean, yes, they can talk about relationship struggles and dysfunction, and you can find it very relatable, and trauma. They have trauma, we have trauma. But at the end of the day, there is so many pieces to our life that they don't have. And when you listen to a frum woman or man that's coming with a similar lifestyle than you're getting all those pieces as well. So it's filling all the gaps, and you're also getting the right hashkafa, which sometimes you don't get from sometimes it's a line. Sometimes they're teaching you things that are actually, totally not a problem with our hashkafa. But when you know that what you're getting is super kosher, and you're finding it relatable because she's, talking. That's what I say. Like, there's so many podcasts out there. There's so much stuff. But what I found lacking was the voices of the frum women leading this kind of very, very, it's a lifestyle that comes with a lot. And look at the big successful women in the world. Look at the Oprahs and all the big people. I don't want to say names, but they didn't have children. They're not even married. Very nice. It's a whole different ballgame when you're leading a frum lifestyle, when you're married, when you have to do everything that's aligned with the Torah. Like, there's so much more for us that we need than what they're offering.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and I think being a Jew, having like an neshama, there's something different that's going to talk to us. Um, and there's going to be a whole part of ourselves that we're ignoring, right, if we're not accessing it through Torah. Okay, so we have to wrap up, but I have so much more to ask you, but I'm going to try to just condense it into the most important one. So one other thing that I've heard you speak about a lot is, you're trying to kind of break some of the like cultural norms that you see in your community. And obviously you're talking more about Hasidic community, but as much as we like to think that we're different, the different streams of like from women, I think really we're more the same than different in so many ways. And we all have like different versions of the same issues and the same cultural norms. So I've heard you talk about like sort of trying to like break away from some of the norms that like aren't serving us, that are kind of just like not helping us be our best selves, right? So just like some of the things I've heard you talk about is sort of like how we tend to split ourselves into types. We're like, either you're the Rebbitzin type and you're all spiritual and you talk about spiritual things, or you're just like normal and you don't talk about that stuff. And it's like not considered like a normal thing to like talk about Hashem, talk about spirituality, things like that. Or another thing I've heard you think about is like sort of how women, the way we tend to like describe women, right? So like we'll just, when we try to compliment them, we'll talk about them in terms of their homemaking skills, their talents, their like how capable they are in terms of more practical things. And like we tend less to sort of describe them in a complimentary way about being like intelligent or deep or thoughtful and all those things. And sometimes I've even heard it as almost like a slur, like, oh, she's like very intellectual, like, the context of Shidduchim as like kind of is a little weird, it's a little bit eccentric, like we're not so, so I guess what I would want you to maybe talk about is like, where do you think those like sort of cultural norms come from? What's the fallout of those things, and how can we potentially change it?
I think it comes from certain people, meaning I know people that when they see somebody, all they see is the clothing. So they're like, oh, is she like put together? Is she cool? Is she like nebby? They only see the clothing. Now, I'm not saying everyone's like that, but obviously when she's going to be speaking and she's going to be describing a woman, it's going to be by the clothing. Some people care a lot about homemaking. So they're going to be describing the woman. They're going to be, oh, she's so chic. She's such a balabasta. She's such a this, because that's what they care about. That's what we tend to see, what we care about. So when we work on ourselves and our insides, and we care about ourselves, automatically we will see that in other people. Like I know when I started learning about energy, okay? So suddenly I started describing people differently because I started sensing, I started being very in tune. I think I was always in tune, but I didn't have it's a thing. I didn't realize it's a thing. And now sometimes, I remember I was using this shekelmacher to do my wigs. And I was telling a friend that like, she's so nice. And then I'm thinking like, why is she so nice? Like, what did she do for me that's so nice? I don't know, I'd sent back the wig a billion times. Her service wasn't necessarily better than anyone else. And then I realized she just had a good energy. Like I found a lot of shidduchim, sometimes it's not such a good energy because they're gossiping all the time. It's like, it's like the place where all the women like hack and do their stuff. And this woman was just, her personality is just such a good, pure sense of calm, no gossip. Her energy was just good energy. And I picked up on that. And that's why I told my friend that she's so nice. Not because she even did anything nice to me. I remember I was even frustrated how long it was taking to get this wig right. And I think that's what happens to us. When we work on ourselves, we start seeing the chashivas and the value of different character traits, and then we automatically see it in others. If you don't know about an inside that is, trained well, cultivated, worked through all of that, you're not going to see it in other people. If you care only about how you look on the outside, that's what you're going to see on others. So I think that to get to that, I think that's the cause of how we got here. I think, we know like Victorian era, what did the women do? I don't know about the Jewish women, but the non-Jewish women, they were only going to balls and partying and wearing gowns. They didn't know how to do a thing. They didn't know how to do anything. And they were uneducated. They were just about the tiaras and the gowns and the poof and everything, So unfortunately, sometimes, in certain generations, and I guess we can we can understand where they're coming from, maybe the Holocaust survivors in different situations that took their education away, took this luxury away from them. They couldn't even if they wanted to, right? But we do have the ability, and we do live in an era where it's not only we have the ability and we have the luxury, it's so easy. We don't have any excuses. So we got to break that cycle. So I think that's where it comes from. And it doesn't really matter anymore where it comes from, because now what matters is what we're going to do differently for the next generation. And if we're going to continue obsessing over our tablescapes, our food, our clothing, then that's how we're going to see other people. And that's how we're going to rate other people. And that's the messaging that we're going to give over to the next generation. It's just going to be a disaster. So if we work on ourselves and our inside, we're automatically going to see, like, let's even boundaries. When you work on your own boundaries and then you meet somebody and you see that they really are working like the way they're saying, like, let me think about it, or I'm not sure tomorrow's the right time, or like you see a different way, the way they're really putting up their boundaries, but like in a very classy, nice way, in a very fine way, without being too aggressive, without being too much, doing it very nicely. You start respecting that because you know how hard it is to come to that point. You're starting to work on that. You're like, wow, look at her. Like, I should be like her. The way she just said that. You see, she did it and it didn't even sound so scary. Why do I think it's so scary to say, like, no, I can't. Look how beautifully she said that. So we start admiring all these different things. And then we start defining people by their work that they did on themselves, or how they think, or how they view life, or how they make others feel, or their energy, or everything like that.
I love that. I think, I love that answer. And I think, the more we as a community, and I think something I've heard you speak about is like part of what you're trying to do with your platform is like every single woman should talking about Hashem, talking about spiritual things, that should be part of every single woman's conversation, not just the Rebbitzins. And I think the more all of us sort of like engage more on that level of our lives and, open ourselves up to more of that type of, input of like, spirituality, Torah, like meaning, all these things, the more, the less we caricaturize other women who we see doing that because it's something which is familiar and we can identify with and we can sort of see it for what it is. And, we have less of that split of like, oh, there's the, different types of people. Am I the type to learn or to, invest in more, deep spiritual things? Okay, so two closing questions. One question is, can you share a Torah concept that you've learned that you can't unlearn? Like it's something that changed how you see yourself or the world.
Tanya was very life-changing for me. And a specific thing that I remember was huge for me was when I learned that when you're sometimes thinking about yourself, like sometimes you do something beautiful, you think to yourself, oh, I'm just doing it because everyone's watching, or I'm just doing it because I don't know, you give yourself those excuses, right? So you're like sort of like disregarding the whole chashivas and the value of what you just did. Oh, it wasn't so special, it didn't become. That is, the Tanya says, is their Satan, the Yetzer Hara. He is trying to make you believe that really you're a horrible, nasty person. And whenever you do something right, oh, that's not you. No, that's not true. You're a beautiful person. And this is really who you are. And when you're not acting that, that's when you're acting out of line. And I think we all have it, but I think I definitely have had these voices of like, even when I was being a good girl and doing all the things, I would find some excuse of like, why it's not so genuine or whatever. And that was life-changing to me. That perspective.
Wow, that's amazing. Love that. Okay, so I don't know if this is going to be the same answer, but the other question I was going to ask you was, can you give an underrated learning suggestion? So something that women might not know about or might not think is for them, but you think that they might really love.
I want to say something, but it might be controversial, but I have started learning Kabbalah and it's been huge. But I know it might be controversial. Some people are very against it.
What in what context? What kind of Kabbalah?
Many people try to get the material, but like from pop psychology again. So like all the manifesting and all of that stuff. There's a way to get all of that totally rooted in our Torah, and Kabbalah actually discusses all of this stuff about how we can open ourselves up to more blessings and how Hashem wants to give us everything. We just have to be the vessel for it. It's all in Kabbalah. And it's definitely all over. Baruch Hashem, like that's what they say in Mashiach's times. It's going to be all Hashem's wisdom is going to be all over accessible to everyone, not just for us as Jews, but for all the nations. And I think if you look online and you research Kabbalah, there's going to be tons coming up, and you're going to see how even the world at large is attracted to this information because it's so huge. So I don't know, you are against Kabbalah, you're not against whatever it is, but I see women learning about manifestation from like the most woke people that have nothing aligned with our values. It's not it's really, really coming from such a bad place. So like, you're learning about it anyways, like take it from the right source. That's my opinion, but who am I? But that's my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I would also say, like, if we want to learn Kabbalah, Hasidus is one of the avenues of learning Kabbalah because Hasidus explains so much of Kabbalah as well.
Start with Tanya. Tanya used to do a lot. Whatever, I didn't finish. So, like, I'm constantly learning. I think that, okay, so I think I could finish with this. I think that when we say learning, people have a certain vision in their head of, like, that big textbook out and very deep Gemara stuff. And a lot of women are not capable of that. Even I don't learn inside so much. When I say learning, for me, when I listen to a speech or Rabbi Manish Friedman speaks or different things, and they keep on quoting the Tanya, I've picked up so much Tanya that way. I've picked up so much different things. I'm not saying that I didn't learn from books either. I did read books, but I'm saying that you could pick up and you could learn so much by listening just to speakers that they learn this stuff. So they keep on like bringing it into their speeches. So I think that we have to change the vision. I mean, if you have a problem with it, if you don't have a problem with it, go ahead and learn inside. But if you don't, if you do have a problem, you have to maybe change the vision of what you thought learning is, because it could be something that does work for you.
Yeah, thanks so much for saying that. Yeah, I agree. I think part of what we were saying before about like saying, oh, there's like the Rebbitzins and they learn and then like that's not for me is because we think it has to look a certain way. And learning can mean a lot of different ways, and like how we can access that higher truth beyond ourselves and bring it into our lives can take on many forms.
You have this vision of the big safer and the big textbooks out.
Yeah.
In today's day, there are books breaking down every one of those powerful, foundational text learning. Everything. You could find even Tanya for kids with pictures, you know, so you're going to understand that because it's made for kids. Start with that.
Yeah.
Who cares? No, like, start with that. Everything has a version for children and for teens and for young adults and for women and for men and with English and without English and your language and there's everything. There's really everything. So you have to be like struggling with that Hebrew if that's hard for you. Find it in English.
Yeah. Also learning with our kids. I recently, like, sometimes when I'm reading books with my kids and I'm like, wow, this is so moving. Like, this is a great message for myself. So yeah, it doesn't have to be on such a sophisticated level all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Some children's books are amazing. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Raizy, thank you so much. This is an amazing conversation. I think you shared a lot of really important things that I think women are really going to appreciate. So thanks for making the time.
Thanks for having me. It was my pleasure. I spoke with that I'm so passionate about, so it was totally a walk in the park for me. So thank you. And you should have a lot of luck with the amazing work that you're doing, because you blow me away.
Thank you. Thank you so much.